Alright, so before you start using the system practically, one of the things you would like to do is import your items into the system, right? So let's see how we can import our items. Now this makes sense, especially if you have a large number of items, which if you try to make manually one by one will be a tedious exercise. So we'll see how we can import our items rather than making them one by one. So if we go to the folder where we had installed SXC Business Suite, so let us go to C Program Files, SXC Business Suite. We'll find this folder called Data Import Templates, and where we can find different templates for importing different kinds of data. So if you look, we have an items template, and if we open this, we see how it looks like. So this is how we have to enter some data. So we don't have to remove the top row, which is for the headings. We just have to populate the data below. So we'll have to put the item code, the item name, then we can put I if it is an item, S if it is a service, and so on, based on how we want to configure it. The group name, the subgroup name, price, unit of measurement, default warehouse, default tax code for sale, whether we want to allow negative inventory. Now it's 0 or 1, which means if we want to allow negative inventory for this item, then we'll put 1, otherwise a 0 will be required. Status A is active, is purchase item, is material item, Y or N, which means yes or no. So if we fill this template, then we can actually import this data into the system directly. So what I have done is I have prepared some data for this exercise. So if I go to SXC Business Suite Data Import, I have the same template filled up with a good amount of data. Now these are typical grocery items. So if you look, you can view that the item code is basically the barcode which is being used for retail. Then we have the item name, item type, group name, subgroup name, prices, unit of measurement, and so on. So here we have about 6,000 items, more than 6,000 items that we can try and import into our system. Now before we do this, we also need to make sure that the groups, which means the group name and the subgroup name, should also exist in the system. And then the warehouse should also exist in the system. The tax code that we have mentioned here should also exist in the system, because otherwise we can have problems in importing, and later on also when we are using these items, the system might not find the relevant data and will throw an error. So what we have is another database. I've prepared a new database for this data importing exercise. So let us log into that database. So this is the one, retail one. So I'll set it and we log into it. Alright, so this is basically kind of a blank database that we can use to see how we can import our items. So if we go to the items window right now, and if I try to open the list, we don't have any items over here. Alright, so now let's get back to our Excel sheet and see what we want. So the first thing that we want is groups, and obviously we don't have these groups in the system right now. Subgroup we've left blank, so we don't have to worry about them. Then we need a warehouse, default warehouse, and different tax codes, GST, 12, 28, and so on. Now all these, there's no word called local here because it's a retail store, so we are assuming that all the sales that will be done is going to be retail. Now we can see different kind of tax codes here. So let us see what we have and then we can proceed based on that. So we need to make sure about the warehouse and the tax code. So if we go to inventory, warehouses, now we have a Delhi warehouse, so which is fine. And then we also need different tax codes. So if we go to tax combinations and let us see what kind of tax combinations we have. So we have GST 0, 5, 12, 18 and 28, and then we have integrated GST 18. Alright, so let us go here and if we put an auto filter, and if we only choose the blank ones, and well, actually blank is fine, but this does not make sense for us all inclusive. So what we can do is we can remove these items for now. We could have changed the tax code, but right now what we're doing is removing these items. Alright, so now remove the auto filter. So what we have is the tax codes which we actually have in the system. Right. So we are set for the tax code and warehouse, but we still have to take care of this groups. Now for these groups, what I have also done is I've prepared another Excel. Let me just quickly save this file. Say cancel. I have another file called item groups. Now this is also a template which is comparatively simpler for importing the item groups. So which only needs a group name and that's it. So I have put in all the unique group names pulled out from their sheet and I have populated in here. So we have 397 minus the heading, so 396 group names that we can import. One thing you might notice is that the data sheet is called data in this, and similarly if we go to the items, there also this sheet name is data. So it's better that we use the same sheet, the template that we get from a Sexy Business Suite, because otherwise we might forget to rename the data sheet as data if we are trying to make a fresh Excel sheet. We just have to remember that. So once we have these files ready, so let's proceed and see how we can actually import this. So let us go to General and Data Import. here you see there are different modules kind of listed on the left. So first thing that we have to do is import the item groups, which we should find in general. So in general we find item groups. So we select item groups, telling the system we want to import item groups. Then we select the data file for import, and this is the data file. Now if that data is read correctly, you will be able to see the data actually over here. This is the preview of the data that you are going to import. Now many times what will happen is that when you will select the data file for import, you might get an error, which is something like, let me show it to you. If we go to SXC Business Suite again, go to the downloads page, additional useful links and files. You see, you might get an error something like this, which might say Microsoft ASOLEDB 12 provider is not registered on the local machine. So if you get this error, then what you might need to do is install this Microsoft Access Database Engine 2010 redistributable. So basically it installs the ASOLEDB provider, which is required for the application to read your Excel file and use it for import. So you can install the 32-bit or the 64-bit depending upon your system. Alright, now once you're set, you'll be able to read the data upon selection of your file. So all you have to do is say start import. Now one of the good things or a good practice before importing any kind of data is to take a backup. So right now we've imported and the result we can see here. So if we look for each of these lines, it gives us a result as to whether it was successful or not, and accordingly we can take further action. So let's first have a look at the item groups. So we indeed have our item groups listed here that we have just imported. Now as I was saying, before each import it's a good practice to take a backup. So what you can do is go to configuration, initial configuration, and here you can see there's a backup section. So backup path, this is where the system will take a backup if you click this create backup button. So let us see. So DMSSQL backups, and yes, we have this folder. This path is correct. So otherwise we could have put this path here and updated this path so that the system remembers this for the next time. So all we have to do right now is click this button called create backup. The moment you do this, within a few seconds you should get a message like the one we just saw, that the database has been backed up. Now sometimes the message goes too early, just like you saw. So what you can do is click on this small icon to see your earlier messages. So database backup done successfully in this location. Alright. So now let us proceed on importing the items. So now we click on items over here and let us select our items file. And here we have our items file. So we have approximately 6,000, maybe a little less because we deleted some of them, items that we want to import. Alright. So let us start import. Now this process will take a little bit of time depending upon how many items or how much data we're trying to import, and of course how fast the system behaves. So I'm going to pause the video and come back when this import is finished. Alright, so we can see that the importing has finished. So let us see what is the result. And for each of the items, we can see that they were imported successfully. So what we can do is we can go to our item master and check if we have our items available. So we can go into find mode, click the find button, and we indeed have our items populated. Now this is the screen which we can use to find the items when we are doing our transactions. So we can search it from here. So for example, if I want anything related to chocolate, so anything that has choco in its code or name or even the group name will be filtered. So if I can, like that, filter it further, and we can see that there are 189 items in which here in either the name or the group name contains chocolate, and then we can open any one of them and see its details, right? So this is how we can actually import our items and groups into the system.